so many things that you talk about. The issue of equality is really interesting, and I'm a lawyer who sits in epidemiology, and that discussion ends up paralysing people because they don't know what to do with it. If we think that what is important for health or is the social determinants, then what do we do? Because the social determinants of health are things like income and education, and that seems almost too big to deal with. So one of the things that we talk about is trying to identify the mediating factors that sit between the big issues that if you think, okay, this is what we have to do today, is just redistribute everybody's income because that's going to have an impact on health, or ensure that everybody has a PhD because we actually do know that people with PhDs live longer. That's true. Then you can actually really suffer from serious paralysis. So what are the things that we can do, the intermediate steps that can be taken in order to play around with the things that both lead to the end point, which is good health, without thinking that you have to change the world tomorrow and make everybody equal now to achieve it. So I think that's a challenge for all of us, and we don't do it. We don't do it in health. That it's not there in the health literature. If you read the social epidemiology, that is something that, because of the way health works, which is really by testing individual interventions on particular populations, you can't deal with the big issues. So health must join with a whole range of other disciplines in order to make sense of what it, in fact, is trying to achieve for populations. The other thing that occurred to me when you were talking is about how we end up with, priorities that are so conflicted, because as a sovereign state, we are trying to lead in the development of science and technology because we think knowledge-based economies are the way to go. So all countries are trying to do that. We're all trying to protect our agricultural sectors, and we, particularly America in terms of its subsidies and distortion of the market in food, the global market in food, and the European Union as well. And of course, food is something that is important to health and what that does in terms of chronic disease. I don't know how many of you would have read The Age, but I imagine this article would have gone further than The Age. Just the other day, an article said 90% of the Tongan community is overweight and 60% are obese. And why is that? It's because their market in food is so utterly distorted for a range of historical but also contemporary reasons that have to do with the maintenance of the the productivity in terms of our own countries and developing horrible canned turkey and sending off our mutton flaps that we don't eat, but of course it's good for our Pacific neighbours. So there's science and technology where our aims are distorted. There is trade where our aims are distorted. There are the ways in which we distribute our foreign aid that have a lot more to do with providing money to our own consultants to go off and do whatever it is that we do in other countries. There's the carving up of developing countries by the various aid organisations that really don't work in those countries' interests, and I don't know whose interests they do work in. So in terms of thinking about global health, there's a lot that we need to do with respect to restructuring our own national economies that's also going to make a contribution.
Can I just comment on that? And other people might obviously want to comment a lot more than this, but as I see it, I agree with absolutely everything you're saying about the social determinants of health. As I see it, what that does is that affects what you might call the standard deviation around the mean. So it's about equity and equality of opportunity. And you'll have a broader range of life expectancies where you've got uneven distribution of resources with respect to health and just general well-being. But no matter, if you had the most perfect social determinants of health in 1900, for example, your life expectancy as an average, I don't believe would be any greater than it was. I think to go from the 50 years in 1900 to the 80 years we have now, roughly, requires new knowledge. But the important thing, though, is when you acquire that new knowledge and you improve your life expectancy, you try and bring everybody along with you. And that's where I see the social determinants playing a very vital role. And that's what I think the major issue, I think everyone would agree, in Indigenous Australians today, because they're missing out on, they're suffering because of a lack of opportunity. But I think I think they're both important. One is the horizontal and one's the vertical. I mean, you need new knowledge to discover new drugs, new vaccines, new therapies, etc. You need to translate that knowledge through good government into better practice. But then you need to have a fair and just society. So I think both of those things must go hand in hand.
Well, I'm going to give up jogging and do a PhD now. So thanks for that.
Are you right-handed? Right-handed people live longer than left-handed people. So.
I'm right-handed.